So typically I like to do a bit of reaction videos, things like that when it comes to talking about the best characters in the game. And today I will talk about my opinions on some of the best characters. I'm not going to really have a full-on tier list or things like that in this video, but I wanted to kind of just discuss some of the best characters. I hope you guys enjoy, and be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you happen to be new. So the first thing I'll say is, man, what a difference a week makes. Because here's my reasoning. So about a week ago, or well, right before UI came out anyway. Actually, honestly, right before Bardock and Goku came out, I was firmly of the opinion that this was the best character in the game. I think that, and so by the way, talking about just individual kits, the way they function right now, because when you talk about best characters, a lot of times it's going to be, well, best character, best team, most meta-relevant characters on the most meta-relevant team, things like that. There's like a lot of different avenues you can go. So a lot of people's lists that they have are hitting on different things. But for me right now, I'm talking about individual kit. I thought that this character was a blend of some of the most powerful effects that we've seen in the game. Obviously, it's almost like Super Saiyan Blue Vegito from the Anniversary V2 almost, if you will. Not exactly, but it feels like that. How they can just constantly have the cover null, things like that, and they are super duper strong. And I still think they're right in that mix, right? I thought Bardock and Goku at first, I remember reading their kits, and I said, oh man, they're kind of like, they're really, really good, obviously. No one would read their kits and say they're not. But I was like, they feel almost kind of like generic, straightforward, which is not necessarily a problem, but it made me a little bit nervous or apprehensive. I needed to see them in action, and I'm here to report they're amazing, right? And that's not news. They've been out for a couple of weeks now. Not really news. And the indestructible mechanic is every bit as good as we thought it would be. And they do some other stuff too that's really, really strong, and they just do a crap ton of damage. Amazing character. But the point is that Beast Gohan was kind of interesting because he was like super duper good, but a couple of things about Beast Gohan. He was also in that mix for best character, and that was pretty apparent because he's super strong as an offensive character, also has a lot of utility in his kit. But if you remember, I did this video where I reacted to Billy, a very well-known creator for Dragon Ball Legends, and also a very competitive player, ranks among the top almost always, things like that. So he knows his stuff. But he talked about, and you can check it out in the description, how Blue Beast will age better than Red Beast, and that was his opinion. And throughout the video, it was about a 20-minute video probably, I liked to play devil's advocate. In my opinion, I thought that Red Beast was fine, right? But I also thought that, because he's brand new, like I don't really have any negative thoughts about him. I thought he's perfectly fine. I really thought that it was a testament to Blue Beast and how well he aged as a character that's just over a year old and is still really, really, really strong, actually. You can still use Blue Beast with great success. But there were things in this guy's kit and specific matchups that this guy has problems with that made it a little bit tricky to see how good he would be going forward. Now, the funny thing is, it's funny how, this is where I was saying in the beginning, the difference a couple of weeks makes, because now I think he's the best character in the game. Why? And this is funny to say, because I think the real difference maker here is the new UI Goku. UI Goku's an interesting character because you can, for the record, you can make an argument for like maybe 6 or 7 characters to be the best character individually in the game. So what I want you to take away from my points and what I'm talking about here is that all these characters are all pretty equivalent. It's like 1A, 1B, 1C type stuff. Like they're all like 1, right? But they're all B, A, B, C, like they're all super close. There's very minor things that separate some of these characters, which in my opinion is really good. This wasn't an Ultra release where it's like, if you don't have Ultra Instinct Goku, you can't compete. You can't do anything. We've seen other releases in the past, Ultra or not, where it's like, if you don't have X character, you're going to lose. It's just that simple. UI Goku is a very, very strong character. Again, in that tier, has an argument to be #1, and I think a lot of people would put him #1. I'll talk about him in a minute. But he's not the character that's like, if you don't have him, you lose. That's it, because there's a huge gap between the rest of him and the rest of the game. That's not really the case. And I think that in general, the power creep is crazy now. It is, when you look at older characters, but I think that over the last year since Beast, that there's been a lot more characters that are in the same wavelength. Like you can use most of the characters that are at least good that have released in that time period to great success, like I talked about with Beast, who's again a character that's just over a year old. So UI Goku does actually have several flaws in his kit. He is a character that's susceptible to a lot of things. Now, here's the deal. He's very strong, but he is susceptible to a lot of things. and some of that stuff's just flat out not going to age well. The lack of nullifying on his ultimate is not great. I do understand why it's not there, though. I'm not really saying anything about that. I understand why he doesn't have certain things in certain spots, because he'd be too damn good. But nonetheless, you do have to mention these things when you look at the landscape of other characters, and also when you forecast how the game will evolve and how some of these characters that are going to come out are going to interact with some of these characters. By the way, for the record, I'm expecting a bunch of purples. By the way, just flat out, I'm expecting a bunch of purples really soon here. Why? Because they absolutely love giving their big hit releases more targets. Look back at all the other, not all of them, but a lot of the previous releases, they love giving them more targets. They're going to drop more characters, right? That are purple. That's going to make him look so much more better. He's gonna just age really, really well for the immediate future, right? But anyway, he does have flaws in his kit, like how he could be susceptible to long-range blue cards. That's not great. Also, blue cards in general kind of really give him fits because he tries to chop, awaken stuff like that. You can kind of play around his gauge a little bit if you're using certain types of teams. Like ranged teams are absolutely the wave versus this guy. And Beast Gohan has his number because Vegito is a character that will get sniped. Like you saw, I did a video where I showcased a 14-star Vegito Blue getting obliterated in a one-shot from this Goku. Now, there were a couple of caveats. Goku did have a second ultimate. I think he gets the ultimate damage increase, but he was also neutral, right? So that's it too. You can't do that versus Beast. Why? Because he's going to chop the damage and he's going to take your neutral off. So, like, things like that is also a prop for Beast, making him, more relevant, but also there are deficiencies in some of these spots. And also Goku only gets the neutral from that ability, I think, when he has one ally defeated, right? I don't think he gets it anywhere else. He gets defensive neutral, but that's about it. And some people will say he gets blown up. I don't know that he gets blown up. I think that's just how the game is. Most characters get, just one comboed by most other characters. It is what it is. Now, you'll also pivot and say, well, why don't you just use him with 17? 17 is probably his single best teammate. Now, there are also team compositions that are really good, using using characters like Bardock and Goku with this guy, or the Evo Vegeta Kaioken Goku combination, or Android 17, or even Pikkon, who I'm going to talk about momentarily in a minute. There's a lot of combinations, and it's not so much about individual characters, because like I talked about earlier, when you talk about best characters, there are different avenues you go down. Because if I start talking about and it's not so much about team comps, excuse me, I was talking more so about individually. But if I start talking about team compositions, meta relevance, that changes a lot of things, because all of a sudden Goku has a good amount of protection. It's not in most cases just Gohan versus Goku in most cases, right? So Goku, excuse me, has a lot of protection in certain situations. So there is that as a talking point too. But I could keep going on and talking more about Goku and some of the things that I think are kind of sketchy in his kit. But I still think, regardless of what I have to say about it, that he's still a phenomenal release, one of the best characters in the game, and a character everybody should definitely go for if you were competitive in PvP. It's just more or less that, again, I said all that to kind of prop up Beast, because circling back, quite the difference that a couple weeks makes, because Beast is the most relevant character in the game right now, and I don't think it's close, because he is the only character in the game. There are other characters that you can kind of like niche characters that you can kind of use. I want to throw that out there. But he is the most relevant only character in the game that kind of manhandles UI Goku, right? He doesn't care about UI Goku at all. Now, the problem with that is Beast actually really struggles with 17. 17 continues to be a thorn in the sides of people. He came out, what, January? I don't even see him on my list. He came out super early in the year. Yeah, he came out in January, it looks like. This guy is still insane. And it's so funny because he has no business being as insane as he is, but he still is. He's almost a year old at this point. Dude, time flies. And this guy, he came out early in the year. I'm not sure if it's January exactly. But the point is, his kit is just specifically tuned to deal with the mechanics that got introduced on some of the characters that released after him that really tried to, make things difficult. One of the inefficiencies with Beast is that he is not able to constantly gain neutrality. He's not able to constantly gain cover nullification. And if you have a teammate or characters on your team that chop blue card damage, the special move damage specifically, again, UI doesn't do that, but I'm pretty sure 17 does. If you have characters on your team that chop that, Beast, all of a sudden, his damage starts falling off a decent bit because he tries to rely on that. He tries to hit you with that. So let's see where that is in here. The falling effects score an enemy activates a special move, ultimate, awakened, or rising rush. Shortens ally sub count. And then down here, minus 50% to special move damage when this character is on the battlefield or standby. like 17 just chops that stuff in half, basically. It's pretty insane. Where, like I said, UI Goku, if I recall correctly, is specifically looking for awakened arts and ultimates, and there's a huge difference with that, right? Because it again makes him susceptible, but with 17, all of a sudden that's not as much of a problem. I'm not going to go through these freaking passives, freaking paragraph on paragraph on paragraph. There's 5 paragraphs in that one passive. So yeah, that is another thing too. But I think individually, Beast is the best character in the game right now, and the most relevant one. And then after Beast, and in the same tier, right, I would say UI Goku, Bardock and Goku, Evolution Vegeta and Goku. So many damn Gokus. Everything's a freaking Goku, Goku, Goku. So many Gokus released this year. So many Gokus. And then after that, there are other characters in the next tier down, but are also, in my opinion, top 10 characters. I'm looking at Vegito Blue for some of the same reasons. The real fact with like the Vegito and Gohan too is that UI is going to be super duper relevant and in a ton of matches, right? So he's one of those characters that you really want to have a counter to. So Vegito Blue, and I'm looking at some of the other really, really strong green characters. Part of the reason why is because green is the most... Is green the most... I was gonna say green is the most like relevant color. It's kinda, but kinda not. Why? Because green has 3 revive characters. It's like it's actually green I think has 4, but they have 3 good revive characters. So you have the Super Saiyan Blue Goku, UI Goku, that recently just came back, a character that I think is really, really strong. You've got Piccolo as well, who got a plat. I mean, his plat's kind of dog water, but it made him better, right? And then also you got Pikkon, and Pikkon is a character I actually don't own, so I have to go and scroll for him at the bottom. Pikkon is one of the biggest risers because I think individually Pikkon is pretty comparable to Piccolo, like as an individual character. I did videos not that long ago saying, hey, you know, the best team, you would want to use these characters, this and that. And I would say, you know, you could make the choice between Pikkon or Piccolo. Like Piccolo's obviously better on like a more melee based team, but Pikkon fits there too. You can find success with that and be fine. But some of the things that are really, really strong with characters like this guy is these long-range blue cards. These are almost in vogue right now, if I use that term right. These are really, 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 really good in a climate where UI Goku's in a lot of matches and a lot of characters are doing the dash-in blues, and UI Goku's gauge is just shutting those down. Those are super duper relevant and valuable. There's more in Pikkon's kit that I could get to, but Pikkon is a character that is super duper relevant and strong right now in this climate. So it's funny because he was kind of whatever on release. It was like he's good, but like eh. And then they gave him more allies, which made his team better around him, like Beast coming out, the Gotenks coming out. Like they gave him more tools on his team. Outside of just Fusion Warrior, which I believe he had passives that made you want to use him only on movies anyway. But regardless, they gave him more tools, and so the team around him is better. But there was also, again, Piccolo there. So, you know, these are the other characters. I've kind of thrown out, you know, a number, so let me just recap with you. We got UI Goku. We have Bardock and Goku. I didn't talk a ton about them, but I did kind of elaborate a little bit that they're just a freaking powerhouse, especially when they start rolling and rolling and rolling. And their AoE green is also very strong, which, by the way, doesn't work against Gohan here. Actually, doesn't work against, who is it, Jiren? It's Jiren, right? Or is it Piccolo? Is it Piccolo? I gotta go back and check. Anyway, you got those two. You got Ultimate Gohan. You've got this guy here. These characters there, I guess them. That's 4 characters I've listed so far. And then also you have Vegito Blue. You've got all 3 of the green revival characters. And that's most of the characters. The other ones I'm going to highlight are pretty straightforward for the next couple. And that's Janemba, obviously, one of the best characters in the game still. You know, it's super funny because I was doing a video with Beast, and I didn't run into any Ultimate Gohans the second I put on that Beast team, but I sure did run into a bunch of freaking Janembas out of nowhere. It was hilarious. I don't know that the video went out, but I played nothing but UIs, and then as soon as I put a Beast team together, I stopped running into UI and only ran into Janemba. Rigged, I think, probably so, but I don't want to call it. Anyway, moving on. Super Janemba is still a terror, still super duper strong. And also, there are still a ton of really, really, really strong characters that you could use and find success with, like Kiawe, like the Gammas, like Kid Buu. Like you could use a whole host of characters that released within the last year, like I said, and still find success with. The Ginyu Force you can still use. Like, these are not even all that old characters. It's just there's so many strong characters that released this year. There are some solid Zenkais that are still really good, like Trunks, I think, has had a stock increase. His stock kind of fell a little bit when Janemba came out, but the Zenkai Trunks has had a stock increase recently with the climate changing around him. He is fine in most situations. He only kind of struggles a little bit. I guess maybe Bardock and Goku can kind of get him too. He kind of struggled a little bit with the Vegeta side, but it was okay against the Goku side, so it didn't really matter much with the tag character. And then Beast and Vegito Blue popped up a good bit, and then also the hybrid team, again, really strong. But UI Goku as well, the original one, really strong. Now, the funny thing is, there's an outlier here. I wanted to highlight a character that released during the anniversary. You notice I haven't actually mentioned them at this point, and that's Goku and Frieza. I think individually, still quite easily, one of the top 5 characters, I'll say, give or take 5, maybe more, like 3 or something like that, but top 5, I think that's fair, characters in the game on a per kit basis, right? They just do so much, and part of that's because they got freaking buffed, right? And it's, you know, my biggest gripe with the buff that they got wasn't so much that they got buffed, because I didn't personally think they really desperately needed it. I thought that was a little bit overblown, that it was like, I thought they were top 5, right? Which is fine. I didn't need every character to pop in and be 1. But after they got buffed, they became far and away 1, because my gripe with the buff was not so much that they got buffed in general, which I guess maybe that because they never do those buffs. They hadn't done them in years, and they said they made it very clear they're not planning on doing it again. But it was more so that they went so far in the buffing. Like they touched everything. Like there was very minor tweaks that this character needed. I think they only really, honestly, they might have only really needed a change to the way that their Rising Rush mechanic works, and they would have been okay. But no, they changed everything from the ground up, which is why I've been saying for a while that they were already going to do that. They didn't just decide to do that in a few days and then roll it out in a couple of weeks or a week and a half or whatever. No, they were already going to buff this character. Take from that what you will. But regardless, they buffed the character and made them so strong. Now, the funny thing is, this art is so good. This art is so damn good. The funny thing is with this character is that they're super specialized. Super duper specialized right now. Like I said, on a kit basis, they're super strong. They do have a few issues though. First and foremost, Universe Survival is in a weird spot where it's like, it's ranged. It just is ranged now. It has a strong melee variation. There are also variations of Universe Survival that you can mix in. You can go, dual trait with ranged and melee, but it's a ranged team now. Also, you can maybe make the argument that you don't need them on the best team anymore. Why? Because you could just go UI 17. Like I talked about, you really want 17 or a blue with UI, and then Evolution, Vegeta, and Kaioken. You could just make the argument, you just do that. And I think most people would be okay with that, right? That's a super duper strong trio, blast based. You have all the covers, all the color covers that you need with that team composition, and you have everything you need. Like you've got utility, you've got offense, defense, you got crazy. Like it's just fine. You don't necessarily need Goku and Frieza. So all of that already has changed the landscape around them. And that says nothing about the other strong characters in the meta beside them that could potentially give them fits in any given matchup. Now, the thing about that though, is another reason that they're super specialized is because UI Goku exists now. And UI Goku is almost a hard counter to Goku and Frieza. If Goku and Frieza were just like, if Goku and Frieza were like the Gammas actually, where they don't even flip colors, they don't have reverse element or like any other color, but they do, right? But if they were the Gammas who released in that same celebration, mind you, and were just flat purple, this guy would be the biggest counter possible to them. However, this guy's ability, and this is probably the single most broken ability in the game. So despite, I meant to mention this earlier, despite him having deficiencies in some spots, I understand why he has deficiencies in some spots, because bro would be too damn good. He would just be too good. He gets 2 ultimates. Could you imagine if he got 2 nullifies and all that stuff on the ultimates for the endurance and stuff? He'd just be too damn good. But I'm here to tell you firsthand, do not bring you can bring Goku and Frieza into a match versus this guy, but you need to be really careful. You need to be super duper careful with what you do, because if he catches them and they can't switch out, they're dead. They're dead. You know the funny thing is, they're dead if it's Frieza, but they're like absolutely destroyed if it's Goku. If you have Goku in, you're getting 2 blast carded, and that's it. And by the way, setting aside the fact that he draws an ultimate for that no switch anyway, you are getting blasted. So Goku and Frieza do not have a chokehold on the game anymore, which is perfectly fine. It's only been 6 months. Really, their reign started falling off maybe a couple of months ago, where it was like, you know, they're the indisputable best character in the game. And the funny thing is, like I said, in any given situation, they could still be the best character in the game because they peak so damn high. I've said that so many times. They peak so high, bro. They're so strong of a character. I don't even know what their best team is right now. Like, is it blue, yellow? Is that their best team with UI and 17 maybe? I'm not really sure in particular what their best, you know, actually their best team is probably Frieza Force right now with the Revival Frieza going crazy. They just do so much damage on that damn team. It's crazy. They're an absolute nuke on that team. And by the way, Revive Frieza doesn't do much damage. He gives them support and does things like that, but he has utility. And you want to have, also, I didn't really talk about this too. Part of the reason why those 3 revives were mentioned briefly, but were mentioned, is because Revive is insane. It's insane because there's no counterplay to it. There's one character in the game that counterplays Revive, really. There's Revive Disruption, but we don't care about that because they also don't put that on characters. Notice that Revive has free reign. It's pretty interesting because Endurance has a lot of counterplay to it in terms of nullification, but one character in the game is able to stop a Revive. And also, by the way, he doesn't interact with Indestructible because that's a whole new mechanic. So there's that. Anyway, like, their best team is probably something like that, but they also, again, if you have that situation, get blasted. And it's funny because, like, if you use them with 17, yeah, he can try to chop the damage, this and that, on the blah, blah, blah. It kind of doesn't matter. If UI gets them, they're dead. They're just dead. Because the biggest thing with UI is that he's got a buffed version of the worst mechanic in the game. You can make an argument for several mechanics to be the worst mechanic of the game, like paralysis, faint. You can make an argument for several things, right? But locking in, basically, no switch, locking in is the single worst mechanic in the entire game. Why? Because there's absolutely nothing you can do against it. Not a single thing. At least if you were paralyzed, maybe you could have got out. You might have got RNG'd and you couldn't switch because you just got paralyzed locked. But after they hit you, you can still switch, right? Maybe you don't get a knockback because you're nullified, but at least the character doesn't have to die. No switch has traditionally been a mechanic that has killed characters. It's there to snipe off characters. Speaking of snipes, also another really strong thing with this guy in particular, I may be making the case that he's number 1, is that he can snipe. He's the only character in the meta right now that snipes that way. And what I mean by that is you can let another character whittle down a character, get them exactly where you want them, bring this guy in, and when they try to save that character, it's just going to get that character locked in for an ultimate. Because he'll just negate it, right? Crazy mechanic. Yeah, you can make an argument, a strong one, that he's won. And that's also why you can make a strong argument for Beast, because Beast, like I said, is the only character that kind of deals with this guy. Not even Vegito Blue, because like I said, Vegito gets kind of ran through. But Vegito, if he gets him, I will acknowledge, can deal with him. But another problem with Vegito, in particular in this matchup, is this guy's gauge, right? Vegito wants to use a bunch of strikes on you, which is fine, but this guy has that built-in, you know, cover change, if you will, where he just stops it, right? So Beast can kind of fall to that, but it's okay because Beast wants to just throw 50,000 blue cards and kick you in the gut 1,000 times, right? But yeah, Goku and Frieza do not, and I was so surprised by that. I shouldn't have been, but I was when I first saw it, because I was like, oh, this is a thing, isn't it? Because I had Goku in and I was like, I didn't even realize that was gonna happen, right? And he got me with UI and I was like, okay, let me just get out. But I was like, ah, crap, I'm stuck. But then I saw the damage. I was like, God dang. And some of that's like, they're not on the boost. He is on the boost type of thing. But like, you really got to make sure you got Frieza out there. Just basically, that's pretty much what it is. But again, I don't want to take anything away from them power-wise. They're still perfectly fine power-wise. I think they're still strong individually, like I said. It's just a climate thing. So that's most of the characters I wanted to highlight for today's video. We touched on several characters released throughout the year, and those are pretty much, in my opinion, all the best characters in the game. I maybe forgot some. I also didn't want to do the honorable mention thing where I mentioned characters like Yellow Frieza because he's really good. Yellow Gotenks, I like him a lot. I didn't want to do the honorable mention thing, but there could be a lot of honorable mentions on the list. But as a final recap, we have the new UL Goku, Goku and Bardock. We have the tag, all the new headliners that came out in this celebration, all 4 of them. The 3 LFs and the new UL. We have UL Janemba. We have the 3 revives. We've got Vegito Blue. We talked about Goku and Frieza, who I think are the fringe character at number 10. You could make an argument that 17 is in that list too. 17's, I think, right now better than Goku and Frieza. Honestly, meta relevance wise, I think he's better because he plugs in to that team with UI Goku easier. Now you could use them with UI Goku. You can do that, but you know, you gotta also be careful there because Beast can chop them too. So it is what it is. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Post your comments down below and let me know what you guys think.